You are almost certainly familiar with the asteroid that ended the age of dinosaurs, a single catastrophic afternoon that rewrote the future of life on this planet. But what you may not know is that this was not an isolated tragedy. It was the fifth time. For times before that fateful impact, the world as it existed was almost completely erased, and each time, against every reasonable expectation, life clawed its way back. These are the Big Five moments scattered across 500 million years when the diversity of life on Earth collapsed by more than 3/4, and 5 moments that, paradoxically, made everything that came after possible. To understand the age of dinosaurs, or the age of mammals, or even our own existence, we must first understand how nature keeps hitting reset. Our story begins 444 million years ago, at the close of the Ordovician period, in oceans teeming with trilobites, armored jawless fish, and vast reefs built not by coral but by ancient sponges. Without warning on a geological timescale, the planet plunged into an ice age. Massive ice sheets crept across the southern supercontinent of Gondwana, and as water froze into glaciers, global sea levels dropped precipitously, draining the shallow continental seas that so much of early marine life depended upon. Habitats vanished. Then, as the ice retreated and the seas rebounded, a second wave of dying followed, as oxygen-starved waters spread through what remained of the oceans. When the dust settled, some 85% of marine species were gone. It remains one of the strangest of the great extinctions, born not of fire, but of ice. Life recovered, diversified, and pushed forward, and roughly 70 million years later a very different killer emerged, this one born on land. During the Late Devonian period, between 375 and 360 million years ago, the first true forests were spreading across the continents. Towering trees with deep root systems represented a revolutionary evolutionary innovation, but they came with an unintended consequence. Those roots tore into bedrock, releasing a flood of nutrients into rivers and streams that ultimately drained into the sea. What followed was a runaway bloom of algae, and as that algae died and decomposed, it consumed the oxygen dissolved in the water. Vast stretches of ocean became lifeless dead zones. The armored placoderms, some of the most fearsome predators the seas had ever produced, along with countless reef-building organisms, suffocated in the very water that had once sustained them. It was a slow, creeping catastrophe, a reminder that even the invention of a forest could ripple outward into global collapse. But nothing, before or since, compares to what happened 252 million years ago, at the boundary between the Permian and Triassic periods. Paleontologists simply call it the Great Dying, and for good reason. In what is now Siberia, the Earth's crust tore open along fissures stretching for hundreds of thousands of square miles, and molten rock began pouring across the land in one of the most violent volcanic events our planet has ever produced. This was not a single eruption but a sustained catastrophe lasting perhaps 1 million years, releasing staggering volumes of carbon dioxide and sulfur into the atmosphere. Global temperatures soared. The oceans absorbed so much carbon dioxide that they began to acidify, dissolving the very shells and skeletons of the creatures living within them. Oxygen levels in the water plummeted. On land, the heat became nearly unbearable, and the atmosphere itself turned hostile. When it was finally over, an almost unimaginable 96% of marine species had vanished, along with roughly 70% of land vertebrates. Entire evolutionary lineages that had dominated the Permian world, ancient reptilian lines and sail-backed synapsids among them, were reduced to a scattered handful of survivors. And yet, within that devastation lay opportunity. Among the gaunt survivors picking through the ruins of the early Triassic were small, unassuming reptiles, the distant ancestors of the archosaurs. With the old dominant lineages gone, an empty world lay open before them, and it was here, in the aftermath of the worst catastrophe in the history of animal life, that the lineage leading to the dinosaurs first began to stir. The road to dinosaur dominance, however, was not immediate. Through the Triassic period, these early archosaurs shared their world with formidable rivals, the Pseudotsuchians, a group that included massive armored predators more closely related to modern crocodiles than to dinosaurs, yet occupying many of the same ecological roles dinosaurs would later fill. For tens of millions of years, dinosaurs remained a relatively minor presence, one lineage among many competing for space in a crowded Triassic world. Then, 201 million years ago, the supercontinent Pangaea began to tear itself apart. As the landmass split, molten rock surged upward along the widening rift, in an event geologists call the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province. Enormous quantities of volcanic gas poured into the atmosphere, triggering another spasm of climate chaos, acidifying oceans, and disrupting ecosystems across the globe. When the volcanic fury subsided, the great Pseudosaucian predators that had rivaled the dinosaurs for so long were gone. The dinosaurs, for reasons still debated among paleontologists, but likely tied to their efficient physiology and adaptable body plans, endured. The Jurassic world that emerged from the wreckage belonged to them, and them alone. It was not inevitable. It was opportunity, carved out of catastrophe. For the next 135 million years, dinosaurs flourished as the undisputed rulers of the land, evolving into an extraordinary diversity of forms, from towering long-necked giants to swift, feathered predators. Then, 66 million years ago, in what is now the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, an asteroid roughly 10 kilometers across struck the Earth with a force equivalent to billions of atomic bombs. The impact vaporized instantly everything within hundreds of miles, triggered earthquakes that shook the entire planet, and sent a curtain of superheated debris arcing across the sky before raining back down, igniting wildfires across continents. Dust and sulfur aerosols blotted out the sun for months, perhaps years, plunging the planet into a prolonged, deadly winter. Photosynthesis faltered, food chains collapsed from the bottom up, and this devastation compounded an already stressed world, one already reeling from the prolonged eruptions of the Deccan Traps in present-day India, another vast volcanic province that had been pumping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere for hundreds of thousands of years beforehand. Together, impact and volcanism delivered a 1-2 blow from which the non-avian dinosaurs, after 165 million years of dominance, could not recover. Yet even here, amid the ash and firestorms, survival was possible. Small, burrowing mammals endured. So did the feathered descendants of the dinosaurs themselves, the lineage that would one day become birds. Out of the wreckage of the Cretaceous world, an entirely new evolutionary stage was set. 5 times, the world as it existed came to an end. An ice age drained the seas. A forest suffocated the oceans. A supervolcano dissolved the very chemistry of life. A rift in a supercontinent cleared the stage for the dinosaurs. And finally, a fragment of rock from deep space, arriving in an instant of cosmic misfortune, ended their long reign and opened the door to our own. Each extinction was a tragedy beyond comprehension, an erasure of worlds we can only imagine through fossils in the rock. And yet each one was also, unmistakably, a beginning.